So I'm Dr. Khulood. I'm from the UAE, Dubai in specific. I work in the health regulation as the head of clinical standards and guidelines. I'm also an AI ethical lead assessor with the IEEE and a non-resident research fellow with the MBRSG School of Car.
Amazing. It's great to have you here.
Happy to be here.
You? What about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Immanuel Azaad Moonesar, Professor of Health Policy and Systems Research, in addition to the President of the Academy of International Business, as well as a Policy Ex-Curric with the International Vaccine Institute in South Korea.
It's great to have you here, and it's I'd love to learn a little bit more about what you're doing here. I spent some time in Dubai earlier this year and learnt a bit more about the UAE and GCC, but we're here in Hamilton, New Zealand. So what brings you here?
First of all, it's my first time being in New Zealand, and this is so exciting, and learning about the culture, about the country, and meeting people over here. I've met a lot of Kiwis when I was in the UAE, and I worked with the New Zealand enterprise in the UAE as an advisor, and meeting a lot of companies from New Zealand with beautiful solutions, particularly in AI. And they've invited me over for HiNZ, which is a big pleasure for me to be here and represent my country and sharing knowledge and then learning a lot about New Zealand as well.
Yeah. Excellent. And so I understand you were up on the stage as well, sharing some perspectives too. Tell us a little bit more about what you both covered in the sessions over this week.
Okay. I did a presentation yesterday on the telehealth journey in the UAE. It's a very fascinating journey and how we started our telehealth and digitalization in the UAE at a very short period, and sharing lessons learned in our country and learning from New Zealand so that we can see how we can bring this further front. Tomorrow, I'll be speaking on a very important topic, which is AI ethics. As an assessor, it's an area that we look into it very deeply in the UAE because UAE embraces technology and supports people to come in and bring in their technology. And I think it's very important to make sure that whatever technology that we bring in is safe and ethical. And this would open doors, obviously, for people to feel more safe in using the tool, and who also protecting our healthcare professionals and our innovators to teach them the right way in terms of responsible AI, in terms of making it more ethical.
Yeah. Two very important topics. And what about yourself?
So for me, as I've said earlier, it's such a pleasure to be here. One critical point that has been of topical debate worldwide is the COP28, which took place in Dubai last year. And then this year, COP29, which took place in Lucca, where it's the first time in the history of COP where they've dedicated a health day, climate change and the impact on health. So having these rich discussions in those forums, but also bringing it to the industry like HiNZ. So this is one of the topics I spoke about with respect to leveraging technologies, innovations for making green equity. And it's one of the main things that's the main highlights that came out of it is waste management. So for instance, in EU alone, you have over 46 million waste products on an annual basis, from medicines and the pharmaceuticals, from the time of production all the way to disposal and even unused medication.
Yeah.
So how do you be a bit more sustainable on these practices? Additionally, deforestation is a major issue when it comes to climate change, where they use the trees, certain crops, plants, herbs for the pharmaceutical industry. She was basically, discussing those, highlighted some best practices from not only in the UAE, but also in the UK, here as well, and in New Zealand. From yesterday I read some reports that just about 80%, it is 8% of renewable energy that comes from the New Zealand context. It was quite impressive, because in the UAE we are aiming 2050, right, to have 100% renewable energy, if you can remember. So this was one aspect. Later on tomorrow we'll have a panel where we'll discuss how New Zealanders can expand their distance to the Middle East. So we're branching out into not only in the UAE, but within the GCC context. So how we can guide them through the process. And Khulood works very much closely with the New Zealand Business Council. So we'll be having our discussions more.
Yeah. Excellent.
And if I may add here, Upas, this complements each other. I mean, when we bring in an AI technology, people remain concerned with the always privacy, breaching privacy, and the importance of cybersecurity, because we tend to forget sustainability, particularly with equalization and AI. We tend to throw AI into everything, thinking it will be the solution for any problem we're having. But then now we're not realizing that this AI cloud that we have is made of plastic. As we are going a little bit bigger and bigger, and even when we're using even smaller tools or systems, we are implementing it everywhere, like smart fridges, smart telephones, and it's everywhere around us. We're not realizing that impact on sustainability. Actually, the CO2 emission from these technologies is equivalent to a car driving around the globe 6 times. This is how actually severe it is, and it's a problem that we're facing right now. It's not even a future problem. It's a problem we're facing right now, and we need to do something about it.
Yeah, it's a interesting one, isn't it? Because we've increasingly over the last couple of years heard about the importance of putting sustainability front of mind, particularly in healthcare, because there are a few different stats that really highlight how much healthcare has an impact on climate, and it can be a challenging one too if you're looking to innovate in this space or invest into growth in this space too. Sometimes, topics around sustainability can be, looked at through the lens of, well, you can't, yes, you need to do it and you need to tick a box from a governance point of view, but sometimes it can inhibit, if you do it the wrong way, it could inhibit growth or even, from a commercial perspective too. So are there ways to be able to address these issues around sustainability, but also, also address the important need of being able to have commercial growth and address more patient needs? Can you have both things at the same time, or does one have to be at the expense of the other?
Definitely, it one hand on cap, right? So, I'll give an example, like medical supply chain. You reimagine the whole system from sourcing of materials, production, all the way to distribution, just even disposal as well, and trying to ensure that you have sustainable products along the way. So I'll take medical aid in times of crisis or humanitarian response. The UAE is the number one country in the world that supplies 2/3 of the humanitarian aid to almost 2/3 of the world's population. Over 141 countries, okay, 142, other countries that are receiving this aid. Now, the million-dollar question is, what happens to the packaging? What happens? Because when a refugee camp, for instance, once they move from a certain refugee camp, there's a lot of waste. So who manages this? Who's responsible for this? So, keeping that in mind, this would be one of those elements. Also, the use of medical drones, for instance. So you cut down on transportation. So, for instance, like zipline there's a typical example where they invested heavily in the last 12 years, and it's a number one mode of transportation to remote areas. Recently, I was in Japan, specifically in Nagasaki, and I visited one of the remote islands, Goto Islands, where zipline distribution center is there. So it was so innovative to see how this zipline drone operated, delivered the medical supply. One of the nearby islands, which was about 85 kilometers away, they got their product within 12 minutes back at the blood supplies and back in, rather than you sending it with boats, airlift, helicopters, and so forth. So you cut down one transportation as well as the carbon emissions as well. And this drone, for instance, it's old. So it's quite an interesting view.
That's a very cool example. And so I want to come back to the ethics in AI conversation for a moment too, because I think we were even talking earlier about how, there's all this potential for the use of AI, or even just more broadly about sharing of data, like the use of data generally in healthcare, and you need to open that up to be able to enable some of these emerging technologies. But then when you bring, the openness of data, or the use of innovative tools, then it brings around questions of security and also ethics on whether you're able to use this and do things safely and effectively. Do you find that these topics are also an inhibitor to adoption and growth, and like other reasons why some health systems won't adopt these technologies or haven't yet? And how do we address that bit concern, the valid concern around like, well, these sounds like cool things we can do, but we're not sure if it's safe and right to do.
No, I love that you used the word openness, because openness resonates well with me when I use the word transparency in AI ethics. And it's one of the main principles. And the transparency is, the way I would describe it is like a glass, a clarity. How transparent you are among stakeholders that are using the system, and this includes the end user and the agent. How aware that there is an AI component in there? Are you able to explain it from one point to another? Once you explain it, are you able to trace it backwards? How predictable it is? All of these components are very important, and I think the way to bring it forward, because at the end of the day you want a balance, the way to bring it forward is to make sure that there is enough awareness. Most of the time, especially as end users, and we're not in the field of tech, we're not sure what we're using and what are our rights, what are our responsibilities.
Yes.
And if we do know, then it makes a lot of sense for us when we're using it. We know our rights, we know our responsibilities, and therefore it falls under the other elements. By, for example, if I know how this works, I would know my rights when it comes to privacy concerns. I would know how to protect it. And because I know my responsibility, I would know what can I do when things do end up going wrong and who's accountable for it. Another important element that people tend to forget about when it comes to AI ethics is algorithm biases. And it's exactly how we feed the AI. What kind of input do we put to AI? Are we addressing those biases that we have in our society? If you go on an AI tool and Google in the word scientist, the first thing that comes into my head is a mad scientist. And that's not the case. And I've given this example in some of my presentation. That's not the case, because that's what we're feeding AI in. So we have to make sure that we're not feeding any biases, and whatever works in a certain part of the world, what is applicable to where we are right now. Are we addressing gender differences? Are we addressing age differences? Does this tool work for old, the 80-year-old white lady was supposed to, for example, a 7-year-old African child? All of these differences have to be addressed in AI.
Yes. In addition to people of determination.
Absolutely. We had this talk earlier while we were looking at the exhibitors. The main focus is always to remember how human we are, to be human, to be kind when it comes to AI. And there's always a talk about humanizing AI. So addressing people determination as well, because it's an area that we need to ensure that we're giving inclusiveness to everyone to be using the system and using the tool.
Yeah. Love it. No, look, touching on a point that you raised as well, I think you mentioned that tomorrow you're taking people through some potentials to take business into the UAE and perhaps the broader GCC too. And I think from a New Zealand, like if you were a technology provider within New Zealand, it's the usual challenge of there's a total population of 5 million people. There's some great innovations and new ideas, but the total addressable market is only so big, and you kind of face that in Australia too. So often within our region, we build with global in mind, but breaking into these regions, it can be a challenge making that first step. I visited the region earlier this year, and looking forward to going back early next year. And from my reflections, into the UAE in particular, a lot of exciting new innovations and an appetite to do things, and a particular focus on longevity I found was quite consistent, and helping people from a prevention and a wellness side. But like any region too, there's a lot of people that are interested and want to have a conversation. It's the next thing getting it to that point. So I'd love to get a few kind of insights into what you will be covering tomorrow in that discussion, or perhaps is there any advice or input for people looking to go into other regions like the UAE on what they should be thinking about?
So I'll talk for the context of Dubai, the Emirates of Dubai specifically, because this statistics that I will share now, almost 49% of the GDP comes from tourism. The other 51% comes from tech industry, healthcare, innovations, financials, clothing and textiles. You also have jewelry as well. So there's loads of opportunity, and as years go by, which would remind me, I would check to see what is the contribution coming from UC Run tomorrow. You can edit back. So it would be quite interesting to see, but like we have the US, of course, number one investors in businesses. You have Canada or even France, you have China, and like a bit of Japan as well, in Germany. So those would be your top five. We also have real estate. So the real estate and so forth. So there's a wealth of industries that are dainty. Now specifically to tech industry, it's very innovative. So one of your promise is now the Sheikh of Dubai, the ruler of Dubai, the Vice President and Prime Minister of the UAE, Sheikh Mohammed Al Maktoum. He encourages us to have innovation, to be creative and innovative. In 2014, the year was dedicated to the year of innovation. As honest, every year we do, there's a year dedicated. So last year, 2023, this year is on sustainability because we hosted COP28 last year, and we also continued sporting Luca for COP29. So it provides this great opportunity for the Z-leaders to come into the region to invest, as well as even setting up a business. You can get this within 24 hours. Yeah, to get your license within 24 hours. It's that simple. And you have, if you're new to business, the business arena, you have experts that could work with you to create your business portfolio. And so they will help you to do, and this is courtesy to the Department of Economy, Tourism. So they invest heavily to attract internationalization into the UAE, specifically to Dubai as well. And so this would be someone goes up.
And the government and from a regulatory perspective creates always that foundation of trust, and giving clear directions, clear guidelines, clear standards for investors and for the community to trust the system. When it comes to digital data, a third of that is on healthcare. And obviously, when we use any digital tool, the plan is always to use it for doing it for a purpose. So if I'm going to focus it on a purpose, and knowing now lessons learned from COVID-19, that people are aging and they're getting more sick or living longer with some comorbidities, what can we do to shift that? And that's where longevity came in. How can we make them live longer but be healthy, and using digital tools to enhance and support that? And how can we make it more personalized, giving that concierge service to every patient or every individual out there, so that the focus is around wellness and about precision medicine?
If I may also add, one of the success is when other countries coming to the UAE to invest or to set up their businesses. One, the UAE, specifically Dubai, is premised on public-private partnerships. So both, it's not government-led, it's working with the private sector and across various, the education, health, science and technology, space, aviation, and so forth. So this is one important point. Another, which we made a change, this was during COVID, business owners or those that set up their business, they can actually own your business 100%. So this was a strategic change, and we've seen quite addressed with insights from outside countries coming in, and we're happy to have more and more persons coming in, making this world a better place, so that we can cover wellness, happiness, prevention, reproductive care, etc.
Yeah. No, I definitely get that vibe, and it's my takeaway definitely too was that if you're interested in entering the region, I guess it's the same advice wherever different region you go to, but you kind of need to be all in for a while, and having that presence locally, or at least the strong partnership to be able to really understand the problems to be solved, build up those relationships, and those relationships take time too. So it's something that every area is unique, but being able to intimately understand those problems and address them directly is super important. So some great takeaways there. Lastly, is there anything you're thinking of taking back into the region too, back to Dubai, from lessons from here in New Zealand? You've come at an interesting time of some external challenges, and but every region has challenges. But there's certainly a few vendors and health systems that are punching above their weight, that are really delivering above and beyond. Anything that's particularly taken your attention that you'd love to be able to take back to other regions?
I think I'm gonna post again the slide that I had posted yesterday in my presentation on the palace of the Inia Palace in Sintra, Portugal. The palace had 3 different angles to it. It looks red from one angle, yellow from one, and grey from the other. And it depends where you're standing when you see the color of the castle. So this symbolizes the importance of learning and having different perspectives. So yesterday I was telling everyone that we're sharing the UAE perspective when it comes to technology and digitalization journey and the story of telehealth. And the great to listen to stories from New Zealand and stories from around the world, so that we can have the full picture. That's when you actually see the full castle. And it's always a learning experience, and that's how we will manage to move forward. And bridging those gaps, creating, like I think you have asked the question earlier, how we can use data to de-riskify this data and be able to share it, how we can cross-border and provide care and well-being to patients in New Zealand from the UAE and vice versa. So all of these challenges, we can only know to talk to each other if we share each other's perspectives.
I think for me, so I'll be a bit biased here. My background is in the MCH, maternal and child's. And they have always been a passion to me. So from the time of conception with the mom all the way to delivery, the child is 5 years old. And then recently, adolescence, we've seen has taken quite a mental health specific adolescent if has been struggling a lot, not only in the UAE but across the world, especially during COVID as well. This is a trauma that this generation would live with for the next couple of decades. And interestingly, I saw a couple of technologies from here which were quite innovative. It gave us something to think about. And we have run this, we had some discussion at the event, so tried to see how we can bring back to the UAE and expand our services when it comes to addressing mental health for children and MBRSG. Yeah, Skype one.
I want to add something. I don't know if you would like to add it to the talk or not, but honestly, I was touched. I think we both were touched by how New Zealand embraced its culture. And adding that to the conference, I felt that walking to the conference, and this brings a lot of uniqueness. Respect one to bring down the whole play before the man, having that beautiful Maori ceremony that we witnessed yesterday, embracing that culture on the stage and the tradition was so touching, and I think we both loved it, and it's something that we would like to see more of everywhere we go.
Yeah.